Good evening. Welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. I'm Leanne Lohman, joined as always by Zach Franciscus. Zach, how are you doing tonight?
I thought I would be doing better. I'm a little nervous every time I see something about an injury. I'm like, that's the only thing that could derail things right
Yeah.
now. So I just hold my breath. But so far, it's good, but a little more nervous than I thought I would be.
Yeah, and we're going to actually talk about that topic and how good the Steelers are tonight. We've got lots of ground to cover. Of course, we're heading into our first preseason game this week, which is super exciting. And so, the Steelers will be playing the Jaguars this Saturday night at 7. And I mean, how can you be more excited, right? You look happy because Steelers football is back. I know I am smiling. And look, it's preseason. I saw Mark Cabali tweeted out today that, like, nobody should be reading too much into anything that happens during training camp or preseason. He certainly isn't. And I have to agree with that. But that doesn't mean it's not nice to see the guys out there just finally back in their uniforms and like playing the game we all love.
Exactly. And there's a bunch of articles, and I hopefully everyone does agree. A lot of this roster is kind of set in stone. There are some battles here and there, but we kind of know where everyone is. So it can be kind of a more lackadaisical preseason when it comes to fans. Look for the depth guys. We get to watch a bunch of special teamers. What better way to spend preseason?
Yeah. I think for me, I'm more like excited about seeing some of these guys play that like I haven't gotten to see before, like see DK Metcalf out there. Do you know what I mean? See some of these guys out there versus like I'm looking at this big positional battle and who's going to win, right? Because I agree with you. We talked a little bit about this, you and I, earlier today, that the first official depth chart came out today, and we'll actually touch on that and Mike Tomlin a little bit later. But I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I looked at that depth chart. There was no surprises. There was, for the first time in a long time, nobody where I was like, ooh, I didn't expect to see him. And, Tomlin always downplays all of those things, look, it's just paperwork and formality. So there were some other little cute tidbits that came out this week. I love this Hall of Fame picture that came out from the Hall of Fame game. Great weekend in Canton. See all the Steelers guys together. I was wondering where Jack Lambert was. He must not have made it out there because he's not in this picture, which surprised me. I think he's usually there. So
I hope he's feeling well.
Look at Bill Cowher. Looks like he's rocking like a straight 6-pack.
Bill Cowher he's aging very, very, very well.
Yeah, like fine wine. The man is doing well. So that's good to see. There was some other little, tidbits about injuries and stuff that came out this week. Say Amalu was back from his non-football related injury, whatever that was. Broderick Jones was a little bit limited, it sounded like. I didn't get to check today and to see if there was any other updates, but he was playing, so that was good as far as what I heard, but we'll see what happens for the rest of the week and then for the preseason game. Highsmith had a groin pull. That's a little bit concerning, only in that he had a groin pull last year during training camp, if I remember correctly, and then it was something that lingered on into the season and reared its ugly head, as groin injuries tend to do.
Oh, 100%. Now the good thing about the offensive line thing that you just talked about is even if Broderick is injured, everything that I've read, the Steelers are not even talking about toying with hey, you want to switch Furtado over there? No, Furtado's staying where he is. Broderick, they have backup plans there, even to the point of talking about Darnell Washington becoming a tackle.
Wild time.
It's preseason talk for sure in Pittsburgh right now.
And look, I know that, I know that the guys are going to, we talk about this all the time. The guys are going to say all the right things about their teammates. But, there's also, we've seen enough teams too, where they, find a way to say not very much of anything about, if there's somebody's not performing up to standard. And I thought it was interesting to hear that not only did Broderick Jones look like he dropped a substantial amount of weight, and then he was talking about putting some back on, which I thought was unusual. I think it's usually kind of the other way around. But also Darnell Washington talked about seeing him back on that other side. They played together at Georgia, and how he feels like it's like he's got his mojo back. So being in his right spot. So I hope that that's true. Darnell Washington is not one to mince words, because when this came up last year or the year before, and Broderick, it must have been the year before, and Broderick wasn't doing real well. And he said, well, at Georgia, he didn't have to work real hard because everybody else kind of picked up the slack. So I'm going to trust him because he's been known to speak his mind in the past.
That's true. What I like about all this is, out of nowhere, is Darnell Washington suddenly emerging as a leader in this locker room?
A beast.
I mean, what I'm seeing from, I don't remember him talking this much or standing out as much or being as active, and that we need. I don't want to say there's a gap in leadership, because I feel there is good leadership in this locker room, but there's going to be guys leaving soon. Cam Hayward's not going to be there forever. Offensive guys, they're going to. I like this Darnell Washington. Yeah. It's apparently good for him on the field. Guys having a monster camp. I mean, just a monster camp.
Yeah. We'll talk about him some more when we get into camp. But, you say that there's not a lack of leadership, but there are some holes on the offense. I mean, that's something we've talked about before, that they kind of lack those guys that show the Steeler way and kind of lead that offensive unit. And, even when you had like Russell Wilson go in there and try to step up, it just wasn't quite the same thing. So maybe Darnell can be one of those guys that, you think like the old Marquise Pouncey's, the old Ramon Foster's, do you know what I mean? Guys that on the offense that step up and kind of lead that group. So maybe that's something that will work out with him. So I love how vocal he is. I also saw this and thought this was fabulous news. Braden Fihoko is back on the team. I liked him a lot when we had him last time. I'm super happy for him. I know he's been working really hard trying to get back to playing and hopefully get signed to a team. So personally wish him all the best in making the 53-man roster. He's got a little bit of an uphill battle, but heck of a nice guy.
That's true, and it's at a position that bring all the depth that we can possibly get on that defensive line, because, not that we need the talent there, but I want to see as much rotation as necessary to keep everyone healthy. And I love that. Love the signing.
The other injury that I forgot to bring up when we were talking about the other ones was that there was Joey Porter Jr. was out during Friday Night Lights. He was like on the sideline and his street closed. I thought that was kind of surprising. I know you looked right before we started the show and said that he'd been somewhat limited. So I don't know why. Did you see why?
Yep. It didn't specify, but he did miss 3 full practices.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So it's, but they're still saying minor. And when I listened to Mike Tomlin's presser today, he didn't bring him up in anything outside of the bumps and bruises Tomlinism.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, that's nice. Oh, it was his hand. Oh, Joey Porter Jr.'s hand. I thought that was Will Howard's hand.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. I looked and I didn't see what the reason was. So his hand, well, that's concerning. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hopefully he's back quickly. Hopefully he's working through that.
That's true. Although if it's between Will Howard's hand and Joey Porter Jr.'s hand, I'm sorry, Joey Porter. I'd rather take your hand hurt than Will Howard's. I'm sorry.
Right. Some other hands are less disposable. Relic said it was a surprise for him to see that Caleb Johnson was listed as running back 3. I don't know. Whenever stuff like this happens, I always think like this is just Mike Tomlin, and we're going to talk about Mike Tomlin and his mind games in just a little bit to go through the rest of this. I got a couple of funny tweets I saw this week, and I just had to bring these to the table because come on, man, Duck Hodges, you got to love this guy. So this is you don't know this is Baker Mayfield out there, and Duck brings up, that he beat this guy in a game, and I just love it. I thought that was hysterical. Good pull for him.
Duck Hodges. That was a fun little time, and I like that he's still having fun just based off like 3 or 4 games or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Zach said Howard's hand too. Yes, but I was talking about Joey's. All good now, though. It was put out there publicly. Smitty scoop.
Oh, we got a Smitty scoop. Look at that. Okay.
I love it. The other one I thought was hysterical is if you've been following the Browns at all in their crazy quarterback room, and there's like 3 guys injured. They haven't even started the season yet, right? Which is wacky. And now they've signed Tyler Huntley to the team. So the Browns finally have a Pro Bowl quarterback, which is crazy. But I love this guy's tweet about the AFC North games are going to be crazy this year when the Steelers roll out 9 tight ends against 6 quarterbacks. Because wow, like we have so many tight ends, and their quarterback room is nuts. It's interesting. I saw an article today when I was editing, where there's some talk about whether Shador Sanders could end up with another team, possibly get traded off the team, and one of the teams listed was Steelers, which no thank you.
Goodness, no. I still remember the elation during the draft when we did not select him.
Right,
and so,
I know. We were tested and we were like, woohoo, dodge that bullet. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind having him if it was, we had time to really develop him and the staff to really develop him. Do you know what I mean? I don't usually get in the camp that Mike Tomlin can't develop quarterbacks, but it's always in the back of my mind that it hasn't gone well. So I don't know. I find that worrisome. Well, I've got a great drunk uncle tweet this week, Jack, if you'll cue me up.
Absolutely. If my mouse will actually decide to work for me.
Oh no, where did it go? Oh, I am having a total technology fail here on my drunk uncle tweet. Here it comes. We could have just done Andrew Filipponi again because, I mean, he does something wacky every week. He had a tweet out this week about who was he trading? It was like a whole wacky trade about trading.
It was Roman Wilson, a third rounder. That's right. It for Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
That was.
Also, the number of tweets that I saw for people to either trade Alex Highsmith to get Micah Parsons, like that's an equal money exchange, I thought was wild. Micah's going to want to seriously be like, he's going to want TJ Watt money. And that's not reasonable for the Steelers, given that we've already paid TJ. And then also a lot of tweets about trading Pat Freiermuth and all these, like, just like the talk about like how much we could get for TJ, he's no good and we could get all this stuff. Well, the same thing for Pat Freiermuth. He's no good. We could get all this stuff. Anyways, here's my real drunk uncle tweet. Antonio Brown, he's thinking about writing a book. I don't know if it's Crooked on the Bookshelf or
is he naked in his picture? What the AB? What are you doing, bud?
I don't know. I didn't notice that. And
I'm just like, why?
What is that? Is that like the Heisman Trophy, or is he naked? I can't see that. I don't know.
No, it looks like it's like his head on like a statue of David is what it looks like. It's a thing. It's an AB thing.
It's an AB thing, but he's thinking about writing a book. So I guess stay tuned for that New York Times bestseller.
It would be interesting if nothing else. Although if anyone has ever watched an interview with AB lately that lasts more than like 5 minutes, it's going to go to some weird places and all over, and he's going to stop, and then he's going to start talking, and he'll change his mind 5 times during
he's a little bit of a rambler. Relic said that he tweeted out that the Steelers had offered Roman Wilson and a 5th round pick to the Commanders for McLaurin. He retweeted it. So
if that's true,
like, no, thank you. I mean, we don't even know if Roman Wilson can play professional football yet.
That's true. We'll later on in this, we'll get on to why I genuinely don't think the Steelers are going to get what people think as far as a Terry McLaurin or something like that. But that Relic's asking all these questions about things we know we're going to talk about later.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about camp and kind of the things that were coming out of this. We alluded to it earlier that, Darnell Washington having a monster camp. I mean, I saw tweet after tweet from the guys that were there at camp talking about him, besting people, him hooking up with Aaron Rodgers for big catches, people saying, how is anybody defense going to stop this guy? I mean, he's just so monstrous and tall. I love to hear that he's involved. I hope that carries over to this season. Sounded like Caleb Johnson was absolutely on fire. They asked him if he was going to get 1,000 yards this season, and he said more. Aaron Rodgers had a scramble. Defense has been on fire. I know there's some talk that, is it that the defense is so good, this new defense, or is it that the offense is underperforming? What are your thoughts, Zach?
I think this is one of those fun things where two realities can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank, for anyone who didn't see last week, we featured a JJ Watt tweet where he says nobody has any idea what's going on in practice. I see so many people putting out like training camp stats and stuff. And while it's fun, it's about as useful as me going to the park and writing down how many people are walking by. That's as much impact as it's going to have on the NFL season. But I'm just lost my train of thought as I was doing that because I started talking about analogies. So remind me really quick what I was talking about there because my analogy.
What thoughts are about whether the defense is really that good or
the defense is very really good. Like really, 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 really good. For Madden to agree that the Steelers are good, for anyone who doesn't know, Madden has the Steelers ranked as the number one defense in their game coming into this latest one, which hasn't happened since maybe 2008.
Wow.
As I remember the last time that was up there. So people are buying into that. But also on the other side, this is a very, very new offense with a lot of guys who are trying to learn two things at once: young leadership and sophomore years in the NFL, which are incredibly challenging. So you have people like Zach Frazier and McCormick and Seumalo, who, while he's at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think both are happening. I don't take any of what the offense is doing negatively. Also, don't get too high when, you see some passes, because even I could probably throw some passes in training camp that would look impressive. But what I'm excited to see is when we get a little bit of the ones-on-ones, whether it's our offense against another defense or our defense against that in preseason, I really think we're going to be impressed with what we see. And the last time I think that was as impressed with the preseason that I'm going to be with this is Willie Parker. Yeah. When I remember that preseason, I'm like, oh, he's fast. He is good. And then it turned into something. I'm expecting moments like that in this preseason. So, the defense is that good. This is a very, very good Steelers defense.
Yeah. And I was really excited to see all the chippiness. I know it always happens, right? But you expect it from certain players, but to see Brooke Pryor tweeted out, I'm not sure what upside down we're in at this morning's practice, but Jalen Ramsey just broke up a fight between Jonnu Smith and Juan Thornhill. Smith cooked Thornhill on the route, made the catch, and then threw the ball at him. Thornhill popped up and the two started scrapping. I mean, you just got to love all of this stuff, and to see the guys kind of chippy. I mean, to hear Aaron Rodgers is out there scrambling to pick up first downs, I thought that was exciting to hear. Do you know what I mean? Look, I get it. It's not like a real game and he's not going to get really hurt, right? But just to see that level of excitement coming from him. I also saw Chris Carter had tweeted out that he felt like the pass protection was more coordinated and better currently, than it has been. The Steelers offensive line units have been better across the board. They picked up blitzes, had on a hat, important. Also, Broderick Jones did 7 shots and that was it. So he's been working out with Seumalo on the side off and on. Yeah, I thought it was exciting. I thought there was, a lot of good stuff coming out of the defense. And I thought it really showed in how excited the fans were. I mean, over 13,500 fans there for Friday Night Lights. I don't know if that's a record, but I mean, that's a massively huge number. They showed a picture of Aaron Rodgers, signing autographs. And it looked like those old videos or pictures you see of the Beatles, when it was a Beatles were doing autograph signings and all the fans were swarming. It was crazy.
This is both good and bad for different groups. I guarantee there's a whole group of old men on porches in Pittsburgh going, it was never crowded training camp. We could park it. But my goodness, I am so happy for Pittsburgh and Latrobe to be able to have this kind of influx because just everyone should know about Steelers training camp. And I think when people don't know about what Steelers training camp is, how much it means, the fact that it's always here, the Pat McAfee show was at there. Ryan Clark, who, even though he is an ex-Steeler, has not been to training camp in a little bit, was there today.
Yeah.
I love the spotlight that's being shown on that.
Kyle Brandt was there and did that great video. We talked about that briefly last week where he talked about TJ and his son. So you're right. There has been a lot more national exposure. I think we're getting more national exposure during the preseason than I usually see. But you know what's interesting is when I'm editing articles, I scroll through, we cover like all the sports. And so I'm always scroll through and look for anything Steelers related and steal that if it's there first. And there really hasn't been much because, there's just not much controversy coming out of our camp this year. So look, while all the outlets find stuff to write about, the reporters are out there writing about what they're really seeing, right? And then the aggregators are going to write about what they think the reporters are saying about that. But there just hasn't been much drama, and it's nice for a change.
It is. If you would have told me a little bit ago that we would have DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Rodgers on the team, and there wouldn't be drama. I mean, I was wrong. We can go back. We did a whole show on what I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to do, and I thought it was going to be drama from the introductory press conference. I don't mind being wrong, but I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the camaraderie.
Yeah. Smith said, Friday Night Lights was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. Even if I'm not credentialed, I got to go as a fan every year now. Yeah. I've been to training camp several times, a lot, even though I don't live in Pittsburgh anymore and go up there for training camp, but I've never made a Friday Night Light, and that's totally on my bucket list. That's something that I want to do so badly. It just looks like such a cool experience. I'm super jealous. Relic said, CBS Sports had a report this morning about Aaron Rodgers not throwing a lot of deep balls and doing a lot of checkdowns and short passes. They are saying he isn't clicking with the offense. This true? For what we've seen, it doesn't look true to me, but I'm going to go back to like the old JJ Watt thing. It's too soon to say that the offense isn't clicking, right? Like these are guys who are, Aaron Rodgers doesn't know any of these guys, right? The offensive line is all new to him. The offensive coordinator's new to him. There's a lot of stuff happening. We've had some injuries. So I didn't think that looked like the case. I mean, you saw just Darnell Washington alone. I think it was Brooke that said it looked like an MMA show out there. Do you know what I mean? With Darnell taking on and beating Watt and Highsmith, Marvin Leal, Jack Sawyer. Do you know what I mean? So you were seeing guys catching the ball and connecting. I know that the offense didn't score as much, and that's kind of back to what we were talking about earlier. Is that a symptom of how good the defense is, or a symptom of the offense struggling? So,
well, I'll also remember the amount of times over this training camp we're going to refer back to that JJ Watt quote is going to be insane. But he said that this is the time to fail. This is the time to mess up. So, for example, they put Mark Robinson at fullback, and when they asked Mike Tomlin about it, he tried 3 times to shut it down. He's like, we just handed it off to him a few. He's like, guys, we only spent 3 snaps on it. And I think we can go back. Was it last year that people were talking about Jaylen Warren on kickoffs or something like that? Yeah. And everyone suddenly got a blown up. Yeah. So they're trying stuff out. I mean, number one, these are a lot, especially on defense, a lot of veteran guys. Aaron Rodgers knows what he's doing. He doesn't have to practice the deep balls. He knows he can hit them. But at least from what I've heard from a lot of people who have worked with quarterbacks, the short and intermediate throws are oftentimes harder than the deep ones. A lot of people can throw those deep rainbows, but those quick slants that you got to get right, that's where the timing is going to matter with him and DK, him and Calvin, all of that. So,
yeah. And I just think it's going to be a balancing act. I saw that Zach had tweeted out Smith that Highsmith was smoking Broderick Jones, but then how much of that is because Broderick is dealing with whatever's going, whatever injuries going on with him, right? And how much of that is just a symptom of him kind of getting it together. Yeah. I said this before that, this offensive line is going to be so key, right? And I think a lot of that is going to hinge on Broderick Jones, because it sounds like Faltanu's okay, right? He's performing, but is Broderick Jones going to be able to take that next step in this third season is really critical.
That's right. And it sounds like they're really working on not just what's going to work, but then contingency plans if it doesn't work. For example, this offensive line should be really good, but If it's not, let's put an insane amount of time into the running backs and pass protection. I mean, because it's the amount of times I've heard, especially Caleb Johnson, because we know, if, by the way, anyone who doesn't know, Jaylen Warren is as good a pass protector as Alex Highsmith is a run stopper. Like elite level. But they are really putting in that effort. And then, to be honest, if anything like last year happens again and we have blocking issues, they're now Washington. Just move them over. So the contingency plans are there, which to me is good. We needed a little humility with that. Instead of last year, we're comfortable with it. We'll be fine.
Well, you have to feel a little bit like, I don't know, like everything last year felt so still up in the air, right? With Russell Wilson's injury, and then Justin Fields was going to play, and then how long is that going to last? And then we had all those offensive line injuries. And so it felt like nothing ever kind of came together. And look, teams that go on and win Super Bowls have to overcome that stuff, right? Like you can't let that stuff totally derail your season. But for us, it happened so early in the season. I don't think we ever got a chance to like get on the tracks, right? To be able to figure out how to not derail it. We never even got a chance to really get going, and then still perform so well. Do you know what I mean? To get through those first several games of the season, did much better than we thought we would. So my hope is that if we were able to do that last year with the disjointed mess that we had with Arthur Smith not knowing he was going to be a quarterback for a few weeks, I think that he could certainly put something together for this year that plays to his strength, plays to the team's strengths, because this has to be like a make it or break it season for a lot of these guys. And I don't want to get into like a huge Tomlin debate about that, because we could do that for like 5 shows. But, for Tomlin, for Arthur Smith, for Aaron Rodgers, look, his career is solidified. He doesn't need anything, but he doesn't want to go out on a low note. Do you know what I mean? So I think for a lot of these guys, Broderick Jones, this is a big year for them.
It is. And I don't know how it happened. And I'm going to credit the Rooneys and Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin for the specific culture they created there. But we went from a place where we couldn't buy a wide receiver 2 last year to save our life to having Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey on our foot. Make no mistake. You ask anyone in Pittsburgh right now, they will unabashedly, and not just in the, Super Bowl or bust, like every team is at 0-0. There's a legitimate belief in that locker room that there's something there special enough that they could win a Super Bowl. And they're not kidding. There will be no laughter when they say that. Yeah.
Since you bring that up, I thought this was interesting. I saw that Trey Essex had tweeted out the other day after a conversation or a talk from Charlie Batch about how this team reminds him of another squad, one that went on to win a Super Bowl, that also, won 11 games. I thought that was really interesting. They did something special that year. Charlie Batch is saying he sees a lot in this team this year. And that's, look, that's not something that a guy like Charlie Batch puts out lightly. It's not like every year you hear Charlie Batch throwing that out there, right? And he's knowledgeable. He's very involved with the team. He's been with the organization for a long time. And I thought that was really interesting, to hear him say that.
I like that.
And has that potential?
I think so. I think there's a lot of differences between the team, but what I really love that they're comparing is 2005 had character. I know for anyone who hasn't didn't live through it and only knows about the fact that we won the Super Bowl and all that, that was a rough year for a little bit. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen, but not every team at 7-5 on a losing streak can pull themselves together and win every game from that point to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And these guys was Essex on that 05 team?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to confirm. And Charlie Batch to me is the absolute when it comes to backup quarterbacks and what you should want in your backup quarterback. For those two guys to say that this team reminds them of that, I feel they're talking a lot about the character of this team. And while I think there's more pure talent on this team than there was on the 2005 team. But we know it does not matter how much talent is on your football team. And I'm sorry to every Dolphins fan in my family, but if it was talent alone, Miami would have 5 Super Bowls by now.
Right.
So that character matters. That I'm excited about that specific thing right there. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I like that too. So I wanted to bring up, there was another player this past week or so that's gotten a lot of attention coming out of training camp. And I always cheer for these like underdog guys, and that's Rock Taylor. So let me read you some of these comments that have been coming around Twitter. Steelers Depot said he's a hell of a player. Will Howard impressed by undrafted rookie Rock Taylor. That was Will Howard's comment. A guy named Dwayne said, fuck it, I'm completely in on Rock Taylor. Portersburg said Rock Taylor is making the 53-man roster. Jack Sperry said Rock Taylor continues to impress at Steelers training camp. Seems Will Howard is already picking up on some Aaron Rodgers tricks. Anthony, my buddy from Steelers Nation, said Rock Taylor stock starting to go up fast. I'm buying more of it. Still great value. Steelers Updates said Rock Taylor showing out at Friday Night Lights practice. He beat cornerback James Pierre for a touchdown on one-on-ones. I mean, this is here. Rock Taylor makes waves at Steelers training camp, transforming from unknown to potential rookie gem with standout catches.
I love that. I really do. And there's a lot of places on this team where if you said there was a standout deep in the roster, I'm like, well, cool. I mean, maybe special team. Wide receiver is more open than you think. I know Robert Woods is a big name. I know we're all big on Calvin Austin, but let's be very honest. It's DK Metcalf and then fight for it.
Yeah.
And I've heard the exact same thing as what you just said, that Rock Taylor, he smells blood in the water. There's something about certain players when they're at NFL camp, they look around, they're like, I'm as good as all these guys or better. I can do this. Why? So I haven't seen enough of him play. Zach Smith, if you're still in the chat, I didn't know if you had seen Rock up close, what you think about that. But if there's anywhere in the NFL that can churn out receivers from nowhere that's suddenly good, it's the Steelers.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what Rock Taylor can do.
I think you bring up a really good point, because the thing is look, we saw last year that like one man cannot do this job alone, right? So you cannot have just like one lone wide receiver. So we know what Calvin Austin brings to the table. I don't know if he's ready for that. I hope he is. I really like the kid. Roman Wilson is a complete unknown entity. We all like Robert Woods, but does he have that like X factor? Because this stat really stuck with me. DK Metcalf, since being drafted in 2019, his yearly receiving touchdown totals have been higher every season than the Steelers' yearly wide receiver receiving touchdown leader. I mean, that's crazy. Like, that's crazy. So I mean, it really speaks to like how much we need. And look, it's not because we're the Eagles and we have Jalen Hurts running the ball in for every touchdown, right? Like, that's not our issue. We're not getting them like that. Like, we're just not scoring like that.
That's true. And interestingly enough, and this is why, as high as I am on Rock Taylor, it still might be a little difficult for him to make the roster. It's Arthur Smith's offense, which means that you're not really looking outside of DK Metcalf. You're not really looking at, are you a receiver? You're looking at, are you a pass catcher? So tight ends and the receiver depth are kind of blended together. And you got JJ Galbraith, who's a tight end on the depth chart, making a lot of waves. And then in front of him, you have a bunch of other guys. It's so crowded right now in that room. And the Steelers last year, I didn't know this, we ran the most 3 tight end sets in the entire NFL. 15% of the time we ran that. They said they're going to change it up and run more 12 personnel, so more 2 tight end sets this year, so maybe more room for wide receivers. But if you give Arthur Smith any choice whatsoever, he's putting tight ends on that football field. So
it's always been his MO, right? But you got to do it like in a way that's effective and makes sense.
There you go.
You know?
Yep.
The other person that I saw a great comment on was Caleb Johnson, who's obviously been impressing people at camp this year. Here you go. This NFL page, so a non-Steelers page, said Caleb Johnson has been, quote, inhumane at training camp, and an anonymous reporter even had him regarded as a, quote, walking touchdown. The Steelers have found their running back.
I'm going to assume, and not being a dick here, but I'm going to assume they meant inhuman, that he wasn't torturing people while he was running across the field, violating the Geneva Convention.
Maybe Antonio Brown wrote this. this tweet, but I'm assuming that it must be inhuman. They didn't mean to put the extra E on there, but I read it as it was written, because if they meant that, I don't want to be in trouble with anybody for misquoting them. If they think they think he's inhumane to the defense, he's them.
I've heard the same thing, and now's a good time to quickly bring up what Relic was talking about earlier when he saw the RB3. I've heard, I forget who I saw tweeted, but it was a couple people. They said that this is kind of what Mike Tomlin likes to do with depth charts. So Caleb Johnson is at this point for a reason. So don't look too deep into that. But Caleb Johnson is a B, and I love huge Najee Harris people on this podcast right here. But Jaylen Warren, what better guy could you ask to learn from, especially with the type of game that we're going to ask from? And Caleb Johnson apparently has answered the bell at every single call. Great camp from him so far. So I like that.
Right. Yeah. I thought I had put it up here, but I guess I didn't. There was a tweet from somebody, and so I can't say who it was because I don't remember. I thought I had it as a slide, and I don't. But whoever the Steelers reporter was saying, and I want to say it was Brooke Pryor, but I could be wrong, that Mike Tomlin likes to use this, like the issuance of the first, depth chart as like a motivating factor for people. And so that may be some of what's going on here. The person that they specifically cited was Roman Wilson, that, he may be using this to try to really motivate Roman Wilson a little bit, into stepping up and being that guy. And I wish I had it on me. I can't. So I apologize. I usually have it. Oh, here it is. It was Austin Bechtold. He said, Jeff Hawthorne thinks Mike Tomlin sometimes tries to send a message with the initial depth chart and thinks Tomlin might be trying to do this with Roman Wilson. So, I mean, look, it's no secret that Tomlin plays a little bit, mind games. Relic added that Caleb Johnson doesn't seem to have the blocking ability, and that's a problem. He said Sports Illustrated reported that.
That's why they're doing what they're doing in practice. Pretty much, I don't think if every single running back was great at protection, they would say, yeah, we got to do a lot more of that. The reason I'm seeing a lot of work being done, especially with Caleb Johnson, is because he needs to improve his pass protection, because it's going to be needed. And what that says to me is we are done sacrificing tight ends for the sake of bad blocking. Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah. I saw this too and thought this was nice to see that Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt are flipping sides around, that they've been working on this, changing it up for some, different practices, not just from reps. And I thought that was nice to see and necessary. Has been a long time coming. We've talked about this quite a bit when we talked about some of the defensive struggles last year, that TJ Watt not wanting to move sides and then the team not having a move side. So that's good to see that some of that is happening right now.
It's going to be absolutely crucial, because I understand, and we talked about it before, why TJ couldn't move where he wanted to last year. There's no excuses this season for TJ, I feel. And he got paid the money he did, and so far he's been doing everything I expected TJ to do. But I want a big season out of TJ. Not just what a good supporting guy he was. He needs to blow the roof off this defense. And if they're going to be as good as I think they're going to be along with TJ doing that, this could be really special.
Yeah, you gotta stay healthy.
I wish my hopes weren't as high as they were on this defense. The offense, I'm very realistic, but my goodness, I'm letting my hopes go just as high as they can.
If you figure out how to control your high hopes, please let me know, because everybody knows what a ridiculous nutball I am. All right, I want to bring this up. I thought that this was interesting. There was a tweet that went out from Aaron Rodgers saying that when he met with Mike Tomlin or talked with Mike Tomlin, it felt like he was talking to a friend, not a coach. And Penguins Jesus retweeted, that's literally the problem. He's hardly the only one to say that. I'm not singling him out as the drunk uncle in this, right? That was a common thread from a certain group of the fan base that feel like Mike Tomlin is too friendly with the players. This isn't new, right? We've heard this before. And I thought that kind of went hand in hand with Pastor Wade, who said that, Roger spoke highly, like a different perspective of the same thing, right? Rogers just spoke highly of Tomlin's leadership and the ability to coach. I believe he knows a lot about winning in the NFL. This confirmed what I believe about Tomlin. It's going to be a great year if we can stay healthy. And I think that is like our fan base in a nutshell, right? Like half of us who feel like what Tomlin does works, right? The team is a winning team, even if we're not winning the playoff games we want, even if we're not winning the Super Bowls we want. Like, that's not because Tomlin doesn't punish George Pickens on national television, right? Like, to me, that's not why we're not winning a playoff game. And versus the other group of the fan base that feel like, he's too buddy or chummy with some of the players. And I was curious what your thoughts are on that. And if you are, what your thoughts are.
I think this is, well, first of all, I love that this is what Aaron Rodgers says about Tomlin. Because I think I've seen two things this year that people really should pay attention to. That we talked about before. Mike Tomlin is slowly, very slowly, maybe reluctantly taking his hands out of cookie jars. Yeah. There's certain moves, certain things that he's saying, fine, I'll deal with this. Mike Tomlin is a player's coach. Players love him. If anyone doubts that, you do not know Mike Tomlin, you haven't followed that. Mike Tomlin is at his best when he's focusing on motivating his players, being that person that can look him in the face and get him to get to that next level. He is at his worst when he's trying to coach everything. Yeah. So this is exactly what I want to see. I want to see Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin have that friendship relationship, because I don't want him going to Mike Tomlin for coaching. I want him to go to Mike Tomlin for what Mike Tomlin's good at, lifting you up, doing all this. I want him to go to his quarterbacks coach and to Arthur Smith for coaching, and then Mike Tomlin to the general thing. I don't want Mike Tomlin to get as specific and acute as he has over the last little bit. And to me, this is very uplifting to see. I'm really happy. I want this to be Mike Tomlin. Lean into this. This is your strength, but this right here.
With like sparing the risk of me getting on my like leadership soapbox about the difference between managers and leaders, I think that this really speaks volumes to that. And I don't want to say it's generational, because it's not just generational, right? It's not just like the over 40 crowd or the over 50 crowd that feels this way, but I think it's, maybe it's the experiences of part of the fan base. The best bosses that I've had in my entire life, the ones that have gotten me to work the hardest for them, are the ones who I feel like partner with me and make me a part of something, right? Like I'm doing something and I'm building this with you and I matter, and you know what I mean? All of those things, like it's that relationship where you feel close with somebody, right? I don't work the hardest for the boss that I'm afraid of. I don't work the hardest for the boss that I'm afraid is going to call me out on national television because I showed up late one day or whatever it is, whether I deserve it or not, right? Like I worked as a behavior specialist for a really long time. Publicly shaming people doesn't get them to comply. It gets them to be better at hiding whatever it is that they're doing, right? So I don't, I've never understood that. My example is always this, that if you got in trouble at work, your boss would not go on the radio or the television or even in a company-wide memo and be like, man, Zach fucked up today. He was 30 minutes late for work and we're not putting up with this crap. And if you're 30 minutes late for work, like this is what's going to happen to you. And so when you see Zach, like the old meme from Game of Thrones, like shame, right? Like nobody does that at work, right? So why would you do that? And I'm picking on George Pickens because he's an easy target here. But so why would you do that to George Pickens? And how does that make sense, right? Like as fans, we have no idea what Tomlin does behind the scenes, right? We have no idea what he does or how he disciplines the players. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't happening. And just because it doesn't work effectively, like with the case of Pickens, doesn't mean he didn't try. So I have a hard time with that. I mean, I think that part of building a relationship and being a strong leader is being true to who you are. And this is who Tomlin is, right? He's not Coughlin. He's not the guy that's locking the meeting room and all of that stuff. I just, so I totally disagree with Penguins Jesus and the rest of them. I think it's a good thing, like I think if we were having issues where Tomlin was sweeping stuff under the rugs for players, like then let's have a different conversation, right?
Exactly. Last year was an anomaly for so many different reasons. But if anybody thinks that because we saw him on Hard Knocks, we know who Tomlin is.
Yeah.
Tomlin did not show his real self on any camera he was ever on. No, so everyone just calmed down with that.
Yeah. And we could do a whole show on this, but Relic says the reason why we haven't won a playoff game is because of lackluster coaching, not going out and getting playmakers, and maybe just relying too much on the defense. And I agree with all that. I think that we had some really atrocious offensive coordinators. I think that there's some luck involved in this. I think we had some bad luck with some draft picks that didn't, you couldn't have foreseen it was going to be an issue and it didn't work out. Yep. Those things happen. We had some injury issues.
Yep.
I think like there's some mistakes Kevin Colbert made keeping some guys way too long. Maybe some draft choices that weren't the best.
Yep. Our hindsight is really 2020, but it's kind of like the Kenny Pickett perfect preseason. If you would have looked really close at a lot of things that occurred instead of just celebrating what they looked like, we would have gone, oh, this is going to be bad later, isn't it? Oh, no. And it was bad later. The Baltimore game last year was the bad later.
I saw somebody, and I almost made it the drunk uncle tweet of the week, but I made my head hurt so bad I couldn't do it anymore. But there was somebody that was tweeting out the other day about how terrible Omar Khan is. And like he overpaid Pat Freiermuth, and like, what the hell? Why'd he pay DK Metcalf all this money? Now he paid TJ all this money. And like, he doesn't know what he's doing. And like, you know what I mean? Like on and on and on about how terrible he is. And I was really surprised by that. For one thing, I think it's way too soon to say that any choices you've made for the 2025 season are bad choices because we don't know how they're going to pan out yet, right? So DK Metcalf could turn out to be a steal. He could turn out to be a bust. Like, it's too soon to say that.
It is like just like us trying to look at training camp and guess what's happening would make a really bad podcast if that was the only thing we did, because it would be all guessing and just saying, I think it's this. It looks like the only bad choice that everyone would know right off the bat is if we would not have released Patterson. That's it. That's the only absolute.
Our biggest mistake. All right. Before we get to talking about the wide receiver room today, I got one more thing for you. I saw this pop up on NFL.com. They gave the Steelers a rank 16th in their power rankings. They say the offense seems to be working through things as it gets Aaron Rodgers up to speed and starts figuring out all the roles. Who'll be the second receiver, how the running back rotation will shake out, and which personnel packages will be featured most. They have settled down since Rodgers' first play interception to open camp, thank goodness. But the anxiety remains over just how prolific this unit will end up being. Defensively, there's a strong hope that this could be a top 10 unit, but memories of Pittsburgh's late season collapse on that side of the ball remain fresh. I like the schedule seems to ramp up in difficulty as the season goes along. I do not. Early bye weeks are never player favorites, and the Steelers are off in week 5, which is terrible, but they will have a chance to settle into the early part of the regular season before things heat up down the stretch. And I'm curious, do you feel like 16 is fair? Do you feel like that's too low? That's too high? Do you feel like there are comments? Every time I read these things that the national media write, I feel like they should have to run it through our local media first, because I disagree with like the anxiety. I mean, I feel like even the collapse of the defense last year, like we've got new defensive players, right? Some of my, Minka's gone, Cam Sutton's gone. Like, I feel like some of those things that, maybe were problematic have changed.
They are. I think if you aren't really sure where a Mike Tomlin team is going to go, dead center is a very good place to go, and 16 is pretty much dead center for the NFL. So, I mean, it could go either way. That's why a lot of this is 1-year deals or prove it deals or stuff like that. So I'm not mad at this at all. If it was higher, there's already enough eyes on Pittsburgh, and I already get wary enough when too much is put on the Steelers, especially because I don't know what it is about Tomlin. He wants to show off when too many people are watching, and I don't want that happening. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit. It's like, oh, everyone's watching? Okay, be the best you can be. And he changes stuff. So this is right here, the right amount of stuff. So leave us at 16 and no one talk about us until we have to play. That's how I feel.
I prefer to be underestimated all the time. Like, we play the best from that. We've talked about this before. I think this is like almost like a Steelers tradition, like the 05 team, going back to them. Like, part of the reason why I think they were so good is because they were so grossly underestimated by everybody that they felt like the only people who believe in us are us, and we have to band together. And so I think 16 is, for an unproven group of players, when you look at who's above them, the Eagles, Baltimore, right? Like the Lions, like they're far more proven groups, units that have core players that have been together, and we're not in that situation. So I think really our offense is so new.
Yep. And if anyone is like, oh, you don't have enough faith in Steelers in the Super Bowl, you have to take a second and say, okay, we have won our first playoff game. What 4 teams could we play? And all of those teams are a buzzsaw right now, as good. So that's how we're not at that place. Because if we make a Super Bowl run, it is 2005 because it's not expected. I said we're winning a playoff game. After that, it's.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And speaking of the playoffs, I mean, I would rather lose all of these preseason games than have like a Kenny Pickett do-over where we get so freaking hyped up, and then the whole thing collapses, starting with week 1. Okay, Annalise says, real talk though, Aaron Rodgers definitely isn't married, right? Yeah, it's not. It's got to be fake. It's got to be.
Really? I didn't know anything about. Is there a Well, I do know. I don't know this as if I know the guy. From what I have heard, him and the new wife that I thought he had are going like to extreme lengths to keep her out of any spotlight, because he's dated other famous people before. So it's pretty much like, I guarantee if you talk to him, he's like, I don't give a fuck if you think she exists or not. In fact, that's what we wanted to do. That was our whole goal. Right. So
I don't know about everybody else, but when I was in high school, like middle school, not high school, middle school, right? Everybody wanted to pretend you had like a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And they'd always be like, oh, I have this boyfriend. I met him over the summer. Where's he live? Like, he lives in Niagara Falls.
He goes to a different school.
He goes to a different school, right? Like, we don't want this to be public. We're keeping it quiet, or her mom doesn't let her date people, so we're not telling anybody. Like, get out of here. Like, it doesn't make you're telling me the paparazzi can find pictures of like Tom Brady on the toilet, and they can't find a picture of Aaron Rodgers and his new woman. And he says he's walking around with an engagement ring, basically asking, like, you wouldn't know her. She lives in Canada. Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
It would just there's certain things that are like a veer off to the direction the Steelers were going, and everything has been drama free. The Steelers gave him the time. So at this point, I'll be honest, if he's married or if he isn't married, whatever personal stuff he had to deal with, I hope he dealt with it, because if there's some weird non-existent existent person, or if like it turned out he married a tree or something like that, it's going to get kind of weird in Pittsburgh.
Look, I hope she keeps him calm. So I don't care if it's a blow-up doll, a tree, a cat. Like, I don't really care what he married. And I don't care if she's imaginary and he sees her only on darkness retreats. Don't care. As long as it keeps him like centered and calm.
And I just realized I made it sound as if I really don't care if people want to marry trees or not. Enjoy yourself. And if trees are your thing, Aaron, then, and if it helps you win as well, doubly good.
As long as the tree consents, right? I'm okay with anything.
There you go. A consenting tree. I like that.
Right. All right. So let's spend our last few minutes talking about the wide receiver room. Every week we've talked about a different positional group. We kind of saved some of the big ones for the end when we were in camp so we can get to see a little bit of what's going on. We've obviously got DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin. We've got Roman Wilson out there, Robert Woods, some of these Skoranek, some of these other guys. So how are you feeling about the state of the Steelers wide receiver room? And do you feel like it's critical that we go out and get another wide receiver too at this point?
I don't think it's critical, and I don't think it's realistic. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have wanted Terry McLaurin. I would have been like, we can't do this. We only have one like big wide receiver. We need another one. This is context specific why DK Metcalf is the one that wide receiver wise we should focus on, and we're good. Because we do have a nice assortment of pass catchers for all different weathers, all different seasons. We got little guys, big guys, all that outside of DK Metcalf. But this specific kind of offense, a lot of times isn't going to call for a lot of wide receivers on that football field. This is not the bend and drop back and 5 wide receivers or, 4 and then Le'Veon Bell comes out. This is going to be a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and that's it. So there's not a lot of room for us to bring. Because if you bring in someone like Terry McLaurin, then you can say goodbye to a Calvin Austin resurgence, because the best he can do is probably maybe wide receiver 3, 4, and all that. The amount of people that they have invested in right now on this football team should show you they really are comfortable. But I think 2024 is people really wary of the we're comfortable wide receiver thing.
I was just going to say that. Like, that's in the back of my mind. Like, oh, we feel good with the group we have. But, like, I've heard that before.
I really feel it's different this year. That it's not. I feel like they were trying to convince themselves last year. Like we had talked about, a lot was all over the place. It was up in the air. It was fly by the seat of your pants to see what happens. This year, it's different. I think Arthur Smith is rising to the challenge a bit. He actually sat down and he really is understanding what he can do with what players. It's the difference, and this is going to sound weird, between the first time I picked up Madden and what I know now. I don't just get every single player and all that. I know there's balances and all. There's balances on this team that right now are working. Yeah. I mean, if I saw DK Metcalf as the only wide receiver on that field, and then Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, or Darnell Washington and John, or something like that, that's 3 wide receivers as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So we talked about this once before. I do think that tight end group is almost going to be like wide receiver 2, right? Like, yes. I do think that's a thing. And look, I'm kind of on the fence with it. Like, I feel like it's premature. Like, I feel like we need to get a better feel for what we really have. And I felt like last year they jumped the gun on saying, like, we're good with what we have. Like, we don't need anything else. And then I felt like they couldn't really dial it back to go all in on one of those other guys out in the league. And that was a mistake. So I feel like this year, they need to just kind of let it play out a little bit and see what it looks like, because it's not like we have to make a decision by the end of this week, right? We've got time to add somebody if we need to do that later. So I think they need to give these guys a chance, because I do think there's a pretty good chance Calvin Austin is ready. I think that Roman Wilson has a real shot at being good. I think he's, I think whatever happened with him last year with this, we can't play him in the middle of the season stuff, jumping on the moving train or whatever, has downgraded him in people's opinions. And I think, he needs a chance. I know Relic, not taking Calvin hate, but he's also all in and bringing back his favorite player. He's hoping for some Van Jefferson to return. It's ridiculous. And while we're on ridiculous, Charlotte thinks that Connor Hayward's going to be a Super Bowl MVP this year. I'm starting to think we're going to have to filter who's allowed to watch this show.
Well, and by the way, Connor Hayward dropped a pass that was directly at him today, hit him in the face, and Patrick Queen picked it off. So just for the record, that's. Although
if you're watching Connor, Charlotte is like your biggest fan, and you should send her like an autographed jersey or something, because she carries the torch for you all the time.
That's true, and there is no Calvin hate. That's the thing. There's just this is a specific offense. And when a team buys into who they are rather than trying to constantly figure it out throughout the season, that is going to work. This defense, you can tell they're already figuring out their identity. These veterans and the young guys, they are a hard-hitting, kind of angry defense, and I like that. But I think this offense is going to find out I think complementary is a good word to it. Every single piece has to play off the rest, and it's going to be efficient. And I know that sounds boring, but my goodness, after everything we've been through, an efficient offense would be like the best thing in the world. Yeah. I welcome efficiency.
Yeah, I think that the defense, the members of the defense that were here last year are really angry about how that season ended. Yes. And I definitely think they're coming into this season with a huge chip on their shoulder. And that is like the sweet spot for a defense to be fired up and frustrated. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think as we talk about, this wide receiver group, I think the one thing that we can't forget is I think last year, George Pickens' behavior had a huge impact, right? So I'm not saying that we would have necessarily won a playoff game if Pickens had been behaving himself, but I think a lot of the offensive struggles we saw were ripple effects from all of his negative behaviors. Do you know what I mean? Like, he clearly wasn't giving it his all. He clearly wasn't his best self out there. He clearly wasn't at the top of his game. And unfortunately, in a position like wide receiver, that impacts the other receivers on the team. It impacts the quarterback. It impacts the offensive line. It impacts the running backs. It impacts everybody. And I think that really created a negative situation where you didn't know whether you could count on him or not. And that was a real problem. And I think that bled into everything else and kind of colored how things panned out last year. So I just think just that alone, like just the picking up and plucking George Pickens out and replacing him with DK Metcalf, regardless of talent or anything else, just a presence who's going to be out there giving it 110% all the time is going to make a huge difference.
I absolutely 100% agree. This team is, I don't know, it seems built for this.
Yeah.
I'm legitimately excited about it's gonna be exciting about this. And I like what you said about the angry thing that this deep, because when people think angry, they think wild and chaotic. This Cameron Hayward doesn't do that. It's controlled anger. A lot of these guys are controlled, and because they've been through the kind of collapse they had last season, they'll be able to smell blood in the water if something happens. They're like, guys, we're skirting near where we were last week. Can't happen. They'll be able to catch it early. So that's what I'm counting on the veterans to hold them accountable to do.
Yeah. Relic wants a small diversion. He said, can we divert for a moment? The Browns have quarterback Shedeur Sanders listed as QB4 on their depth chart, below Kenny, who hasn't played in a few because of an injury. Shedeur is going to get traded. Watch. I brought this up briefly earlier, Relic, that I saw an article where he was coming to the Steelers. With Huntley being added, either Shedeur gets traded to the Browns, or the most poverty franchise in NFL history, and have no idea what they're doing with 5 quarterbacks on the roster. It's bananas.
It is. It's just a handful of darts at a dartboard and seeing what sticks. Now, Shedeur Sanders, I did hear he is starting the preseason game for the Browns. So I think this is legitimately just, hey, listen, none of these are the best option. Just play and someone do this. I mean, they're still in Deshaun Watson hell. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're totally hamstrung over the whole thing. I think they're smart, which I don't usually say about the Browns, but I think they're smart to just let Shedeur go out there right off the bat in the preseason game and play. And then everybody can just shut up. Do you know what I mean? About it, and about how he is, the next Tom Brady or whatever, and just relax and let things go. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, look, no hate towards the kid, right? I think he's got some talent and some potential. I don't think he's ready yet, right? And the Browns needed somebody who was a little bit more ready. If you want my opinion, I was a Browns fan, I'd be mad that they traded away that you know what I mean? Like you could have had Travis Hunter. You could have at least had like a generational talent with that first pick. There wasn't a quarterback to get. You could have at least had a generational talent and you'd be ready. So
we're gonna be talking about it for a while.
Yeah, he said Zach Shedeur is starting, but I don't see it lasting. His shoulder is sore. He's got a sore shoulder, man, even though he's getting like third and fourth string reps. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is wild.
I want to say this comment. I'm not talking as pro Browns, it's pro Sanders in this specific context. Like I've said many times, I watched pretty much every game he played in Colorado. He has never once played behind an offensive line that gave him anything resembling time. He has run for his life every second of every game he's played in college. So the best thing the Browns can do is just keep him upright and see if he can throw a football at NFL level. That's all. That's all he needs. Now I'm hoping it doesn't work because it's the Browns, but that's what I gotta say about Sanders for anyone watching.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for them. It's certainly like the most entertaining quarterback situation to watch during the preseason. It really is. I mean, it's kind of a shit show, and go ahead, Joe Flacco. Right?
Joe Flacco. That's such a weird quarterback room.
It's really, really strange. It's really strange. Like, how do you just go out and get primarily all guys from your rival teams and then bring them in? And I don't know. And like, we haven't even started the season. 3 of them are hurt. You've got 5 quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know.
I'm. If it was any other team, I would be like, oh, let's see how they fix this. Don't fix it. You're the Browns.
Yeah.
Just collapse.
Yeah. Well, he says, how do you even put Shedeur? He's had a lot of connections and touchdowns in practice under Gabriel. He's had like 2. I mean, in practice, it's so obvious the owner doesn't want him. Wasn't it the owner that came out and said he wasn't my draft pick? Like, I think it was the owner that came out. It was the owner. He came right out and said it. Like, this wasn't my decision, or he wasn't my choice.
Yeah, between him and Jerry Jones, Brown owners in the NFL are really making players feel welcome. In Cincinnati, they barely got their draft pick. I just smell like a strike in the next 2 years. Just the way these owners. I'm just saying, let's enjoy the season while we're going.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He said you have to feel bad for him, like he's really not going to start and he's not going to be on the team by week 1. It's kind of fun. It is, because the thing is look, I don't know. I think the whole thing is screwy, and I think it speaks to like a bigger problem in the NFL that we could probably do another show on. But like, how do you have a guy? How do you mess it up that bad, right? That a guy is at one point in last offseason, he could have potentially gone before Cam Ward, and then he drops all the way to the 5th round. I mean, it's crazy to me, like how, I don't know, like misevaluated he was. Like, you can't tell me that it was just character issues that made him drop to the 5th round, because it wasn't that kind of character issue, right? Like, you thought he was a little bit arrogant or cocky. Like, I'm telling you right now, a lot of those guys are arrogant and cocky, but you're putting up numbers to back it up. Nobody cares, right? Like, no one cares.
Now, I think the more people look, the more they realize that, he's good at what he does, but other people on the team are why he is looking better than he is. And his dad didn't help at all. I know that for a fact. So.
Yeah. I don't know, the whole season, the whole thing. I'm glad it's not happening in Pittsburgh. That's all I can say. It's a mess.
Oh, goodness, yes.
Yeah, I don't want any part of it. All right. Well, if you've joined us tonight, we really appreciate it so much. Please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to the show. It helps us out a lot. You can also find us and the Steel City Huddle podcast page on X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it this week. You can follow all of us there. If you're catching the show after the fact, then please drop us a comment, send us a message, add us on Twitter, and let us know what you think about some of the things we've talked about tonight. We're going to be back next Tuesday night. We'll be able to talk about that first preseason game, break it down, and see what's been happening since then and how everybody looks. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Leanne and Zach would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.